Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mysterious Galaxy virtual event. Tonight, I am joined by two wonderful authors and creators. We have Gama Ray Martinez and James A. Owen. Hello, gentlemen.
Greetings.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you both today?
Doing pretty good.
Great.
Excellent.
Talking about books. How could that be
Right? And Gama, happy book birthday to you.
Oh, thank you.
So Gama Ray Martinez, the author of not only God of Neverland, which I have right here. It looks very stunning. Look at that cover. Does everyone have? Yes, there's we go. There's your covers. He is also the author of the fantasy series Fairmore and Nylean Chronicles. Join in conversation with him tonight is James A. Owen, founder and executive director of the art and design studio Coppervale International. James has written and illustrated 24 STARCHILD comics, the award-winning MythWorld series of novels, and best-selling series of the Chronicles of the Imaginarium Geographica. But today, as I said, we're here for Gama's latest novel, God of Neverland. If you haven't yet gotten it, what are you waiting for? Get it now. Get it now. If you get it through Mysterious Galaxy, he's being so wonderful and providing signed and our personalized book plates. If you hit the link below, it says buy Gods of Neverland and get a signed personalized book plate. That'll take you to our website, and you can put it in the comments section if you want it signed or personalized. And again, any kind of book sales, whether this one or any other books, does help support us to continuing wonderful events like this in the future. If you have any questions that you want to ask for later in the event, you can actually hit another link below that says ask a question and submit your questions. That'll be answered later on in the program. Before I disappear and leave it to these wonderful gentlemen, I am going to actually queue up a really cool trailer that I have no idea what we're showing here. I totally didn't get to test this out before. Just so you know, there's not going to be any audio for this. We tried. But I hope you envision in your mind the palace of the brain, epic music, cannons. There's no cannons, but epic music still. So here we go. Wow. Can people find that online by chance?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, so you should be able to find it there.
Okay. I hate for anyone to recommend anyone else a YouTube channel other than Mysterious Galaxy's YouTube channel. But in fact, it might actually have the audio when you watch this later on YouTube. But yes, you definitely need to do yourself a service and search this video, because the music adds even more to it. The video itself is stunning, but the music's like chef's kiss right there. All right. I'm going to leave for now. I'm going to see everyone at the end of tonight's event, but I hope you both enjoy. Have a good one and see y'all later.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Gama, first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
Today. I've really enjoyed watching some of your posts leading up to today.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the one where you mentioned thinking about this and working for it and planning for it and dreaming about it for literally years.
Mm-hmm.
How's that feel, buddy?
I'm still kind of in shock about it. I mean, it's like, I remember in high school talking about how I wanted to be an author and I wanted to get a book published with one of the big publishers, and it's like actually happening, and it's so yeah.
You've been working at this for quite a while. For those that are watching this that aren't aware of your history, you've got a bunch of books that you have published. I think the inside of the God of Neverland copy actually lists 11 books of the other series that you've done.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Maybe more. You're at a point where you've lost count of your own books. that's not a terrible place to be, Gama.
Mhm.
Before we get too far into it, since we showed the trailer, can you just give us a little bit of a summary about God of Neverland? Tell us a little bit about the story.
Sure. God of Neverland takes place 20 years after the events of the original Peter Pan. Michael Darling has to return to Neverland to help save Peter. So Michael was the baby in Peter Pan. So this is 20 years later, and now he's going back. So that's the high level overview.
That sounds pretty good to me. And the great question: where is Peter Pan?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a sucker for exactly that kind of story.
Uh-huh.
I love your other books. I love the inventiveness and the creativity. But there's something about finding threads of stories that are already well known around the world and beloved, and finding new aspects to those that as I've built a bunch of my career on doing very similar stories, and something about that, those hidden stories, that really appeals to me. So what was it that pointed you in the direction of this story?
A couple years ago, I was listening to audiobooks of a bunch of the classics, things like The Jungle Book, Wizard of Oz, Gulliver's Travels, and I got to Peter Pan. And then in the epilogue, it talks about how Michael grew up to be a train engineer and how he was the last one of the Lost Boys to ultimately stop believing. And that just sort of set balls rolling in my head about what if he didn't actually stop believing, but something else happened. So that was the genesis of the whole idea.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of awesome. I don't think I knew that. But that's exactly what I was talking about finding some little story thread and then asking a what if question.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of love that. I love that, especially about Michael. Tell us a little bit about the process that you've gone through with this, because you have, as I mentioned, written other books. What different doing this kind of a process? And I guess, had you started this one with it in mind to publish with a larger publisher?
Yeah, this was when I specifically targeted to it. It's actually about 20,000 words longer than my other books, specifically for that reason. But yeah, this was just, like I said, it was an idea. And I remember I was actually contemplating it a couple of years ago at the conference where we met at Superstars Writing Seminar. And I was like, okay, I need something, that there was something missing, something in the beginning that was missing about it. And I was like, I need some way to bring the mystical into the first act, because the first act is before he gets to Neverland. And I was talking to this with one of my friends, and she gives me this deadpan look, the crocodile. And she was completely joking, but I was like, that's it, that's brilliant. And so, that's how I brought the crocodile in, and that was the whole mystical element that came everywhere. It became this like big monster. And just finding threads like that. I started off by just outlining it, and spent a couple of months writing it. Re-listened to the book Peter Pan about 12 times in that process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just picking up little snippets. Like there is, for instance, a witch in this book, and I got that from in the original Peter Pan. The narrator talks about how there's a lot of things in Neverland, like an old woman with a crooked nose living in a cottage in a swamp. And it's just like an offhand sentence, but that she became a major character. So, just catching little details like that.
Wow. Okay. And is that something you are maybe going to expand on in future books? Maybe some of these other characters?
Oh yeah. So the second book, which is going to come out next year, is going to be called Queens of Wonderland. And that's obviously going into Wonderland. So I'm expanding it that way. And then I'm bringing the three main characters in this book then travel to Wonderland. But then I'm also bringing in some of the old characters. And after that, we'll see what happens.
Now, in working on this, did your editor know that some of these characters were based on those little tidbits from Barry's book?
They knew I had brought it. I don't know if they knew about those specifically, but they knew I had brought in a lot from different mythologies. Because I pull stuff from all over into this story.
I asked because I ran into that with my editor on a couple of the Imaginarium Geographica books.
Uh-huh.
And I had one of the manuscripts, my editor sent me a note and said, we've had all the assistants looking into this. We cannot find any background material on this specific character you have in several chapters. We can't find anything on them at all.
Mhm.
That's because I actually just invented that. It wasn't from another literary tradition or another book or another character. That one was all mine. But that I love that idea that you found some of these little lines. I think being able to build an entire character and whole story aspects out of those throwaway lines, I think that's when you know you've got a story you really are passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been watching, because I was watching the whole time you've been writing this book and working on it. And I think one of the best parts about that is seeing you excited about the process, because you were excited as you were writing it. You were excited about getting an agent and an editor. And from all appearances, you found exactly the right editor to work with this. Just the process. It's, you know, I don't know all the details about it, but just watching you from afar, you've been enjoying this. And that's a big part about, you know, why we get into this to begin with, is we have these stories we're excited about and want to share. And when you find an editor that can be a creative guide to help you shape that story you're excited about, and you come out of that process still being pretty excited about it, that's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, it is.
So, and you met, I believe, both of them at Superstars, correct? Your agent?
Actually, I met the editor at Superstars, and then he actually referred me to the agent, who I then met in person for the first time at Superstars. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good place to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's been interesting thinking about this whole process that you've gone through to this point, just because our friendship began at Superstars and has developed over those years. Since we're on the record, and this is your first promotional event, I'm going to point out that I called this. Years ago, on stage, I was talking about some of the students at Superstars and some that had been regular attendees and some of the projects they had published, and the ones that I believed had great potential in publishing, great potential in genre fiction. And then I named you.
Yeah, you made me cry.
I think we figured out, a couple of your seatmates figured out I was talking about you before I actually said Gama. And then I said Gama, but I was quite serious. I was so pleased to see you on this trajectory. And when you become absolutely, phenomenally, deservedly successful, a path that is beginning now anew with this book, I am absolutely going to dine out on the fact that I called this. Just saying. But I wanted to ask, because it's something that appeals to me as an artist. Who selected your cover artist? How did that process come about? And was that something David discussed, or?
So yeah, they asked me for ideas of what I have, and I gave them a couple, and then they selected the cover artist and they sent me a sample. It's like, is this okay? And God, I am forgetting the guy's name. I am forgetting the cover artist's name. I'm thinking out, but I believe it's the same guy that does Jim Butcher's cover. So I was like, yep, that I'm fine with that. Yep, that's good. So, but yeah, at first they gave us the rough draft, and the rough draft of the cover, and I was like, well, that looks okay. But then they did the final. I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. So,
well, it pays to work with somebody that has a track record.
Yeah,
that you can refer to, and I think it's gorgeous. I mean, that is a pretty spectacular cover. And you got some pretty decent quotes. A lot of decent quotes. You Brandon Sanderson, Kevin J. Anderson, Andrea Stewart, who is another one of those, I think, in your class of the up and coming, hot young Turks that are going to define a lot of what this business is. David Farland, whom we all miss dearly, and who was a great mentor for you. And this James A. Owen guy that tells lots of stories about you. Specifically, I can't wait for you to be sitting at a Barnes & Noble and have somebody say, I changed my flight plans. Does that sound familiar, Gama?
That does. Yep. I believe that rings a bell.
Would you like to fill in our viewers with your side of that?
I was in Phoenix. They were doing like a rodeo event where it was like kind of based off the Run of the Bulls in Madrid, but not as cruel. It's basically just rodeo bulls chasing you. So I was doing that. I had flown into Phoenix, and then I saw that James was having a signing that day. The day I was coming back, I was like, oh, that's like a couple of hours after I leave. So then I called Delta and I changed my flight so I could go to a signing.
Which, when you told me, there was a couple of moments there where, you have this tendency to giggle a lot, and you smile and you get this big grin, and there were a few moments where I thought, I think he's pulling my leg. And then the more we talked about it, then you started dropping some comments about, no, here's how I arranged my flight. And I was sketching in a book for you, and then realized, wow, no, he wasn't joking. He actually changed his plane flight so he could come to this signing. And I think as a result, you got a really good drawing in that. because how can you not? And that's something you've done events before. With your own books, you've appeared at conventions and done signings. I think you're about to see a leveling up of that with God of Neverland and the promotion that Harper is doing for you. What do you think about that? I think you know it on an intellectual level.
I am honestly still kind of in shock about it. In February, they recorded a podcast. I recorded a podcast with writing excuses. It hasn't aired yet. I think it's probably going to air this Sunday, but I'm not sure. Okay. And you mentioned Brandon Sanderson gave me a quote, and he was basically just gushing about this book on his podcast, and like that's kind of like just overwhelming for me because when I was, before I had even doing this seriously, Brandon Sanderson was like my favorite author, and it's like this kind of this surreal moment when someone you looked up to recognized you as a peer, and it's it's still kind of just blown away by it. So I am still constantly in shock. I was telling you earlier that I had a total stranger message me wanting to know if there was going to be a sequel,
right?
And like it's the day it came out, so it's so yeah, I'm still kind of in shock about all the stuff that's happening.
I saw your post earlier about the first autograph you did.
Yeah.
And I made a comment on Gama's Facebook post about the first copy that he got to sell personally, or his wife Melissa, who's a marketing genius, may have actually sold on his behalf, and your first autograph. And the comment that I made was, you should keep track of that guy because he's going to have to write the introduction to the 10th.
So what's his name? Caleb, if you see this, that's just a warning.
You got 10 years to think about it. And I had that in mind because I just picked up a copy of Brandon's book Elantris,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the 10th anniversary edition,
Mm-hmm.
and it had an introduction by Dan Wells, and I didn't really think a whole lot of that until I sat down and read it and realized that Dan, is he part of the Writing Excuses?
Yeah.
They've been in a writing group together for some time before Brandon sold Elantris.
Oh yeah. They were in Dave Wolverton's creative writing class together.
Oh yeah. They were all arguing about the name, and apparently the very first copy of the first book that Brandon sold, he signed for Dan.
Mm.
And I thought that was kind of poetic to have somebody that you had come up through the trenches with, learning the craft and learning the business and being mentored by the same person, and then seeing their publishing careers start to take off, and then having a connection like that. I just thought that's poetic. That works. And it works the other way too. I was honored to be asked to give you a quote for the back of your book.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on your side of it a number of times. I loved getting quotes from people who inspired me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
On our side of it, the people giving you quotes, that's a beautiful book. It is a remarkable accomplishment. It is something that you earned. You worked to create this book. And to be invited to actually say something about that kind of work, it's an honor. It is. It's absolutely an honor for us to be involved in the launch of something that is so important to you. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Still totally going to be taking credit for calling this years ago. just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you just mentioned the title of the upcoming second book. Is that public, or are you just announcing that here for the first time?
I have posted about it on my Facebook, on my personal Facebook, so I don't know that I've put it on. I think I posted that I had started Queens of Wonderland, and the title may change at this point, but that's what we're going for.
Okay, I'm making sure that your editor is not watching this and poking on his ginger ale and is like, oh my gosh, and texting you all of a sudden.
Well, they put the series on the book, so there has to be more.
I think that's kind of awesome, and that is a huge thing. I didn't get that on my first book. And in fact, in the afterword on Here There Be Dragons, I wrote something and referred to well in future books, and my editor sent me the note back, and he's like, "We have to take that line out."
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we it's a little early on to make predictions like that. And I don't think I slept for a week after that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God. And then, and there was no reference. The series title was on there, but no book one or anything. So second printing, they added a 1 to the spine. Suddenly I felt a little bit better about it. And I was talking to somebody recently who has just started his career as an author, Matt McMahon, Lisa McMahon's husband. Lisa is a tremendously best-selling author. We have done a couple of book tours together and crossed a lot of paths. And her husband was writing about the new experiences of being an author after dreaming about it all this time. And he had a little bit of trepidation about starting the promotions with this book. And I told him about when I started my first book tour for Here There Be Dragons. So kind of where you're sitting today, Gama, and said that they started my book tour in New York and they put me in the Pierre Hotel, which is one of those places where you have to have a jacket for dinner in the restaurant, and room service was crazy expensive. And I was kind of stressing about that because I'd never actually gone someplace on a publisher's dime before. So I ordered a burger and a salad and a soda, and I couldn't bring myself to order the creme brulee for dessert because it cost so much. And then I had a nightmare that night that there was a knock at the hotel room door, and it was my editor and 2 security guys. My editor says to James, "We just got back in your first sales figures. You're going to have to come with us. You didn't long distance calls or eat anything out of the minibar, right?" I woke up the next morning and called my publicist and said, "Yeah, this is what I've been dreaming about." And he said, "James, the sales are just fine. You can order the creme brulee." And I think that's become kind of like the code word now for new authors is it's okay to order the creme brulee. It's okay to celebrate the moment that you're having and the day and the days and weeks to come. Because this is a big deal. And a lot of people are going to continue to make a big deal out of this. And, you know, if I can make another prediction, I think this is just the start. I think you've had some successes with the books that you've had. I think crossing the big hurdle of getting a publishing deal with a big publisher, that's a big deal. But I think this is just the start of a whole new phase for you, Gama. And you got a great editor, which is honestly a big part of that obstacle that you can have is trying to find an editor that not only sees the commercial potential in what you're doing, but also creative value and supports you creatively. And I did want to ask that, how has that experience been working with an editor who actually bought your book as opposed to working with editors that are helping you fine-tune books that you were going to publish through your own imprint?
It's been interesting. I didn't realize how many back and forth we would have for one thing. But it was, really obvious that they were passionate about this project too, which is, I was just kind of blown away by it. I was like, "Oh, you really like this?" And I was like, "That's why you." So yeah, that was.
That's why we paid you, Gama.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't had any experience being edited really for a bunch of my career until Here There Be Dragons. And when I got back that first manuscript with 200 Post-it notes, my first response was, "Oh my gosh, I am the worst writer in the world." And now they're just editing this to try to recoup their investment because apparently I'm terrible. I didn't know. I didn't realize how involved that process was going to be. And that they had reasons for everything that they were asking about. And that's, I don't know if that was a similar experience for you.
Yeah, and just how deeply they went into it. Like at one point I had referred to the fact that in the past, Wendy had been saved because she was wearing a thimble.
Okay.
And then they went back to me. I was like, "Actually, that was an acorn button." I was like, "Oh, you're right." And that was a kind of level that that I hadn't seen.
Wow. They're paying attention.
Yeah.
I had one of my editors who is no longer at Simon & Schuster, but I keep up with her on Facebook. She had referred to a situation, her favorite editing catch was catching in a manuscript that an author had written about World War II, or World War I. He'd written about World War I. And this was prior to World War II. So no one called it World War I. They called it. And I'm reading through this and nodding my head like, "Wow, that was a good catch." And then I realized, hey, wait, that was me. And I commented, and she's like, "Yep, that was you." On the one hand, sometimes you feel a little dumb, but on the other hand, that's why we have, beta readers and we have editors. And then I didn't realize that once it's gone through the editorial process in-house, they sent my book out to an outside editor who then did her own pass and made a list of all the characters and locations and all these things. And I got to where I enjoyed the editing process with her. It became kind of a back and forth of Post-it notes. And there was one early on where the Post-it note was, is this actually a word? And my response was, I'm reserving the right to invent 3 new words in every book. Word number 1 for the and then she sent that back and she's like, just wanted to let you know I tallied 4 invented words in the book. So are you going to take one of those out, or are we going to change the parameters? And I went back in and looked at them and I'm like, okay, one of those words was kind of flaky. So yeah, let's take it back down to 3. But it became kind of a back and forth where I realized they're in it to help me make this as ideal a book as possible. And it's not just them. It was educational. I think it was educational. And I think the point where it kind of left me realizing that with an editor, if they ask a question about something, about the story, I'm not talking about, well, you killed this character in chapter 7, but he's back in chapter 12. You need to sort that out. But if they ask a question about something else in the story, they ask for a reason. But I wanted to make sure that they also respected the relationship enough that if I said, no, I need to leave this here, that they said, okay.
Yeah.
So it's realizing if they say something, there's a reason for it. But I want to make sure that if it was something I wanted to keep in there, sometimes you have to. If you're writing something like this, if you're writing a series, sometimes it's a long game. You want to plant some things that maybe it's not going to have a payoff for a couple of books. And, that's the best kind of optimism, I think, is when you can do things like that and nobody's sending you a note about, you need to wrap this up. I think it's going to end in book 3. So what do you think? What do you think about this series? Do you think this can be a long-running series?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have a lot of material to play in. I'm hoping a third one can take place in Oz, but we'll see if that happens. And then I was going to look into some maybe African tribal stories or Australian Aboriginals to see about stories where they go into other worlds and see if I could, get something with those. But there's obviously a lot more to that, a lot more, being respectful of their cultures and stuff. So that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. I'm just trying to figure out where I can find stories that I can have them go into those worlds. So
I think that was the correct answer, especially if your editor's watching. So what do you think, Gama? Shall we check into if we've got any questions?
Sure.
Okay, we've got one. Oh, we've got a few. Okay. I'll start making my way through them.
Okay.
Okay, what were some of your favorite moments in writing the book, either in real life or in the book itself?
There's this one line that sticks out. It starts off with Peter crowing, and then Michael thinking that he had always thought that was an idiosyncrasy of a boy who was full of them, but now he saw it for what it was. The Lord of Neverland made a cry to battle. And so that was just like my favorite line in the whole book. And so I enjoyed that. And some of the research, like this is revealed in the second page. So I'm not spoiling anything, that I made Peter Pan the same as Mapanos, who was a Celtic personification of youth. And he's called the Divine Child. And I was like, oh, that is perfect for Peter Pan. And so just doing some of that research and being able to bring in some old stories. At one point, Michael drinks what what I call a dragon's blood potion and learn to talk to animals, and that came straight out of Norse mythology. So stuff like that.
Wow. Okay, love that. Okay, here's a fun one. What was your creme brulee treat for yourself? Have you yet for your lunch?
Actually, I I signed up to go on the Writing Excuses cruise. Actually, just a couple days ago, so that's going to be fun. And that was me rewarding myself, and that's going to be fun. Just going to this, and not necessarily just being just a student, but him, being someone else who can be there and just talk to people. So that's been my big one that I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Actually, looking forward to this event. I had a little bit of a brain fog with this because this morning I decided, I've got this event with Gama tonight. I should make one of his favorite meals for dinner. So I cooked my curry of the gods. And then it kind of sunk in partway through. This is a virtual event. Gama's in Utah, mysterious galaxies in California. Okay, not going to work quite as apparently I was thinking earlier on. But I'm going to enjoy that curry on your behalf, Gama.
All right.
There was another question which we already managed to answer about if you could do a spin-off of other books, and you've already mentioned Wonderland and potentially Oz. I think that kind of covered it. I think it's
so actually there's another one that kind of been rolling around in my head, and it was I don't know where the story would go, but it was a council of 3 people, and they were the descendants of Tarzan, Mowgli, and Dr. Dolittle. So that's kind of a
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Dibs on drawing that. Okay, here's a good informational one. What conventions will you be attending?
Well, this week I'm actually going to Indiana Comic-Con. Next month I'll be going to Fan Fusion in Phoenix, and then
Awesome.
Dallas Comic-Con in June, and Salt Lake FanX in September. And there may be other ones in between those, but those are the ones that I have scheduled right now.
Nice. Looking forward to seeing you at Phoenix.
Yeah.
I missed that during our little pandemic drought.
Yeah.
Oh boy, some good questions here. Okay, let's focus on your story. Were there any characters that ended up having a larger or smaller role than you initially envisioned for them?
Yeah, actually. I have a character in there who is named Vanessa. She was Michael's partner. And initially, she stayed behind when he went to Neverland. And in the final draft, she ends up going with him and being a partner with him throughout most of his adventures.
Oh, nice. Was that something that just developed as you were writing it?
That's actually something my editor suggested to get another female perspective into there.
Okay.
Because initially it was most of it was focusing on Michael and the hereto unheard of Wendy's not quite dead husband.
Okay. How would you say your previous works prepared you for writing God of Neverland?
I think it helped me a lot in the outlining process. When I first started trying to be a writer, my first 2 or 3 books, I didn't outline at all. And I slowly developed the outlining process that I use, and that definitely helped. And that helped me just sort of fill out some things and just solidify some of the major story turning points. And other than that, just having the patience to sit down and write something this long, which is something I didn't have when I started this. So
you said it was about 20,000 words longer.
Yeah. Most of my books, they tend to be aimed at the upper middle grade. So they tend to be about 60,000. This one is 80, 85.
Okay. Very cool. Did COVID in any way affect the writing or editing of God of Neverland, or perhaps its sequel?
Not really. So I actually finished God of Neverland, finished writing God of Neverland before COVID started. Part of the reason why it took this long was because this is actually 110th anniversary of the first appearance of Peter Pan. So that's why they delayed it to this time. So it actually COVID actually sort of helped me with the promotion, because that meant I bypassed the worst of it.
Right.
So I was talking to my local Barnes and Noble. So I was like, "Yeah, we haven't had events, so you're going to be our first one." So just being in that point, so it helped with that, and just being probably helped by giving me more time to go through the editing process. So I definitely wouldn't say it adversely affected. So fun fact, I actually got the call that they were buying this a couple of days before my wedding, and I actually had special permission from my wife to respond to any book-related emails on my honeymoon. So
that's great. And I did like the fact that they listed a bunch of your other books inside this one. Be prepared for that, about the whole overnight success thing, with people that think this is your first book. This is your first really wide book. But you've been working at this. You definitely earned this.
Well, there's a saying that an overnight success takes 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the books that you'd say influenced your writing style or made you want to be a writer?
The big one is definitely Dune. I tend to pull a lot of stuff either from the feel or from the inspiration from Dune. A lot of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. I mentioned Brandon Sanderson. His Mistborn series was definitely big in there. But I think those are the big ones right there.
Nice. What author would be a dream to collaborate on a book with?
That's a tough one. Well, if it's any author ever, it would be Frank Herbert. But that's not going to happen anytime.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know that I would have called that one, but that's okay. I'm sorry.
Other than that, Brandon or yourself, probably.
Oh, okay.
Yourself, yeah.
Well, actually, we haven't really collaborated. I did an illustration for you.
Yep. For my Nylean Chronicles series, there was a sort of a companion book called Lords of the Wild, and you did the dragon and the cover for that one, yeah.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well. And like I said, you ever do that other book? I'm down to illustrate that. Special edition or something. And Brandon, he's collaborated with some people before. He's actually pretty good at it. So I'd say both of those are probably pretty open possibilities. Question for both of us. What's on our current to-be-read list? What are you reading, Gama?
Right now I'm rereading the Ranger's Apprentice series, which is one of my favorites. But next on my list is actually, the second book in this series. I've read the first one. It's by R.R. Veerdy. And I read the first one and I really enjoyed it. So the second one on that one is definitely coming up.
Oh, he's another one that's kind of in your class.
Yeah.
You and Andrea and Ronnie, definitely. He's going to have an interesting year, I think. What am I reading? Actually, I've been reading. Had it right here with the dust jacket off. Bathing the Lion by Jonathan Carroll. Carroll's one of my favorite authors, and I've had this sitting in a shelf waiting to be read for some time. And I'm finally able to get around to it. And that's something I've had to learn recently, is to deliberately take downtime, because I realized I'd quit reading for fun because I was worried about all the responsibilities and deadlines and things you have to do. But you need to nourish your creativity too, and you need to have that downtime. And also I have to catch up on Terry Brooks finished Shannara, or Shannara, depending on who you ask at what convention. And I have not read the Fall of Shannara books. So I'm a little remiss, and I'm planning on trying to take a vacation this summer and just taking those 4 books and, leaving the cell phone in a pocket somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's a couple of good ones, and I think those will probably be our wrap-up questions. Were you influenced by other Peter Pan retellings or variations?
I actually tried to be really careful about that, just because I didn't want to step on any copyrights. I did get something from Hook, and actually what I got from there was more of something that was okay to do. So in the original Peter Pan, the shadow isn't a moving thing. It's something. It's like kind of like a flat cloth that Wendy sews back onto him. And then I was like, oh, because he's a character in my book, and I was like, oh, Disney did that. Am I stepping on Disney's copyright? But then I realized that the movie Hook did that too.
Right.
So because Disney didn't protect it, didn't say Hook couldn't do that, then that means that's open game. So.
Yeah, I think the only thing there that was protected was the original play.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one that the hospital maintained copyright on.
Well, they have the hospital has the Great Ormond's Children's Hospital has actually rights in perpetuity for the original book of Peter Pan, but not for the characters.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, yeah, that's a completely unique copyright situation where they have that copyright forever.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this can be our wrap-up question, and it's for both of us. What is one book you think everyone should read? Wow, that's
pick just one.
Yeah, I know. That's one of those impossible. Who asked it? Elizabeth. All right, remember that, Elizabeth. But that's
I'm going to cheat on this. From Audible, I got for 1 credit to account as 1 book, the complete Oz series.
Oh. Okay, we'll allow it. And why? Why is that something everyone can read?
Well, it's one of those things that's always just back there in everyone's mind, and there's actually a lot of differences in it between the story and the movie everybody's familiar with, and you just find a lot of just tidbits there, and I really enjoyed that.
Nice.
It's like 39 hours, so
One book. Boy, if I don't know if that's even answerable.
Say God of Neverland.
What? Asking counts. So that's the actual answer to wrap up part of this event is the one book I think everyone should read is God of Neverland. And it's from Mysterious Galaxy. That. That works out.
I think with that, I have to pop on screen and go, congratulations. Gama, great job again. Happy book birthday to you.
All right, thank you.
I loved all the love that James is throwing your way. He is obviously very proud of you, and as you should be for such a great event. And again, you've had 11 books under your belt, making way for this great one right here too. So I have one last question for both of you. Where can people find you on social media?
I am on Facebook under Gama Ray Martinez, and Twitter, same thing, and Instagram, I actually think I'm Gama Ray Burst. But you can find me just by searching my name. So,
and I'm on Facebook pretty continuously under James Artemis Owen. We use the full name on that, and James A. Owen is more the fan page, and jamesaowen.com is the main website.
Wonderful. And thank you, everyone who tuned in tonight or who will be rewatching this in the future. Any purchases of your book of Gods of Neverland helps the store continuing doing wonderful events like this. You'll also get a signed and or personalized book plate from Gama. Just make sure in the comments section if you want personalization, just to put what you would like within reason. Probably no big, long, super paragraph quote. Though we had a previous event where an author was like, I'll put anything. I'll even put like stabby knives because she did a horror book. And I had so many requests after that. Give me a stabby knife. And she did stabby knives. All right. So with that, I'm going to wish you both, Gama, and you too, James, have a great evening. I hope you get some wonderful rest. Good luck on the promotion of God of Neverland. I hope wonderful things come your way.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.